Hello everyone, SirMonkeySuit here, back again with Kuroko no Basket Season 1. We are on episode 13, and in the last episode we have been continuing our game against Shotoku, and we have been struggling since the very beginning, which, you know, I'm not surprised this is the way that the actual match is going. Ever since Shotoku got their first, obviously, 3 points, we've been behind throughout the entire game. Last episode was crazy, considering what Kagami was doing. I mean, he upped his game to a level we haven't seen yet. Unfortunately, the negative side of that was the fact that he was becoming a bit too selfish in the game, and you know, none of the other players on Serene were basically even getting a. I mean, they were getting a touch to the ball, but it was like, you know, Kagami was demanding it to come to him, because it's a case of like winning. Even if I'm the one that has to, you know, drive us through it, you know, and not bring any of the other players into the game. And Kuroko had something to say about that, because obviously it goes back to what happened in episode 5 with Kisei basically pointing out that, you know, because Kagami is up, like, you know, he's not at the Generation of Miracles level yet, but he has the potential to get there quickly. And, you know, Kisei saw that possibility was coming, that Kagami would be forced in a position like this to just get pissed off and you know, basically force himself to do everything. But Kuroko, you know, he smacked him one in the face, and you know, Kagami didn't appreciate it, but you know, he got a smack on Kuroko as well. But then, you know, things cooled down. Kuroko was like, right, there's no other option then. I'm gonna have to up my game, like, you know, especially because Kagami right now is fucked. His legs are shot. And I don't think he's going to be doing much for the rest of the game, because there's not much he can do. Unless Kuroko can, you know, basically do everything that he can in his power to bring Kagami at least into the game somewhat, you know. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I mean, that's all I've got. I don't know where we are in terms of the game. Are we in the last quarter yet? I don't know. It may say during the actual episode, but yeah, nothing else to really talk about. So yeah, if you do want to go actually watch the reaction, then the link to the highlight 10-minute version will be in the description below. There'll also be the link to the full length there if you do want to watch it in full, and not just the 10-minute version. Then the offer is there for you. But yep, nothing else to really talk about. So we're going to get in episode 13 and see what we get. So without further ado, let's go. Okay, episode 13, and we beat Shotoku in a way that I wasn't expecting at all. I mean, I'd figured that when Midorima had done the fake, because again, it's another thing that they did in volleyball, where they would delay a jump so that they would force the blockers up, and then the spiker on the other team would be able to get up above the wall and spike it down. And it worked the same way here. He forced Kagami, who managed to jump again, by the way, even though they'd put it down to 2 as a limit, that the rest that he'd had left, and he used them both up, that he jumped again. And I mean, as a sort of, I guess, rule of anime, you always have to keep that at the back of your head. Like, it is anime though, and they put the limit. And anime normally, I mean, well, depending on, generally shonen anime tends to go with the limit break rule, right? Which is, you specifically state the limit of when you're going at, right? So like, you'll get either, you know what I mean, like they'll point it out like they did in this show, or it'll be a case of like, you know, like, oh, I've reached my limit now. You know, like in a fight, for example. All Might did it. It's happened loads in like Dragon Ball Z and stuff. And it's always about breaking the limit, right? So you've always got to keep that in mind. And I felt as though after he used the second one up on that dunk, that it would end up being a buzzer beater. And I've said this before, like in the early episodes, where it was just like, I feel like there's going to be a lot of buzzer beaters in this show, right? Because you've got to keep it tense to the very end, so that's the way you do it, isn't it? You keep the points very close. So, yeah, but I was thinking that he would do the same. He would do something similar to possibly get the win, which would be to jump up to go for another dunk, forcing Midorima to jump and try and get the block, and then Kagami would pass it off, as opposed to like actually going for the dunk again. But later on in the episode, the coach for Shotoku figured out that no, that was actually his limit. But I love the fact that they switched that around immediately, and Ida had another, or Rico had another plan in place by figuring out that they would notice that Kagami's limit has been reached, so they would focus all their attention on Midorima getting the ball so they could win the game with getting 3 points. And therefore, you know what I mean? And having Kuroko as well up his game in a way that, I wasn't expecting. Because I was like, right, well, how can he up his game? Because most of it is based around... His limit isn't the same as the other ones. Other players, in terms of their limit, is all physical. Like, it's all physical. And what they can do with, like, their bodies, so to speak. Whereas Kuroko's is always, like, the mental sort of game, because he's not going to be the one that's going to dribble past you or run you ragged, but I like the fact that they explained that instead of trying to have a lack in presence more by standing off a bit, but by getting up in his face and forcing his Takao's. It is Taco, isn't it? I just want to make sure. Because for some reason... Yeah, it is. I was going to say, because it just... For some reason, it didn't sound right. Forcing his Hawkeye to not... he's not seeing the whole thing there. Because he's so close. He's so focused on what Kuroko is going to do that it's basically just... completely took him out of the game. And then when he's focused, that's when he's got you. So then he can revert it back again in that amount of time. Meaning that, your focus is elsewhere, and he basically took Taco completely out of the game. Like I think I saw him like twice, from the beginning of this episode. As soon as Kuroko had his number, that was it. He was completely out of the game, and it was more to do with Midorima and that number 4 as well. So yeah, I mean, I thought as well, like at the end, it would have been a buzzer beater with Hyuga and that number 4, and it would be a case of going back to what happened last episode or whatever, the episode before, where Hyuga was wondering how to be a clutch shooter and get points when you're under pressure, right? And I thought that's what it would come down to, and in a way. It'll be interesting to see if Hyuga learns from that. I mean, if there's ever a match where this happens again, though, I don't know. Because then you would have to have a similar situation of it obviously going down a buzzer beater, like a buzzer beater, which, I've said that it'll happen, like, a lot, right? So, but it would have to be, like, a similar situation. Regardless, what Midorima had said is that if it ever comes down to this kind of situation, I'll always wait it out and force it as a buzzer beater, right? Because once it's gone, you're not stopping it. So it very much works in Midorima's favor, and I wonder if that's something that Hyuga will look onto. Because I mean, the reason why they even got that last chance there anyway was because Hyuga waited. If he had have, because it seemed as though because he was so far back, Shutoku hesitated, and they didn't go running after him, meaning that he could have took an extra second, and then that would have been it then anyway, and he wouldn't even have to have relied on Kuroko or Kagami, because I think it was like it went in at like the 3rd second or something. So if you waited a second or two, that would have been it, and there wouldn't have been time for Midorima to get the ball and jump and release the ball. So so it's going to be interesting to see if Hyuga actually takes that on. Kuroko with his new pass, as he calls it, which is barely even a pass. It's just whichever way the ball is going, he just helps it on so that it's harder, and it's going at a faster pace. It's harder to intercept, right, and steal it. So yeah, that was really cool, and I wasn't expecting it to even go to Kagami at that point, but it did. and he used up his second and obviously the jumping limit thing to get the dunk. And I like the fact that Kuroko actually pointed out there afterwards is the fact of like, it related back to what the flashback that they had where Kisei was talking about, getting dunks and stuff, and Midorima was talking about how it's 3 points that are the coolest. But I love the fact that, again, Kuroko looks at the game and it's not just about... It's not as like simple to him as like getting points and winning and everything like that, but he loves the other side of it where it's like playing the fun side of it by upping your game with your whole team and like looking at even though at that point it was like Kagami's not going to jump again after this because that was his jumping limit, and he used it on what could be considered just a dunk to just get one over on Midorima, which would put Serene at risk because now they don't have their trump card for the last, for the very end of the game. But it helped out in terms of confidence and momentum in the game when Serene ended up getting control because of it, because it put Shotoku on the back foot. It got on... Kagami had gotten to their head, essentially, by thinking that Kagami could still go. And therefore, they're under pressure. And when you're under pressure mentally, that means that sometimes you're not going to take shots or you're not going to give passes that you normally would if you're playing positively. And you've got like a sort of positive mental attitude at that moment. You take more sort of risks because they tend to, a lot of things in sports, what I've found anyway, and I used to play football and everything like that, is when you are on form, so you're playing well, right, and you've got like your confidence is high, you tend to let the ball go quicker, right, because you have no hesitation, and hesitation in sport is very sort of crucial to how people play games and stuff and play matches and things like that, where if you're not letting the ball go that extra half a second earlier, that can be the difference between your like the ball getting to who you were supposed to give it to and an opponent picking it up and intercepting it, or it could be the difference between giving that lethal pass through which allows somebody on to get a goal or a point or anything like that. By letting it go just that little bit earlier, that is normally the difference. And that's why, mentally, there's a lot in sports to do with your mentality in a game, and that can just change on a sort of dime, which a lot of people would probably a lot of people could easily say that momentum in a game, that's just that's poppycock. There's no such thing as that, you know what I mean? Anything can happen, kind of thing. But it is true because momentum is actually tied to the mentality of the players on a team. If you're under pressure all the time, your mentality tends to drop and your confidence starts to drop. And all of a sudden, instead of thinking that you're going to, drive past an opponent and end up getting the point and attack, if you're consistently under pressure, your mentality and your thoughts and everything become, God, we've just got to do everything to stop a point, and all of a sudden it becomes, I can't let him take a shot. What if I make a mistake? And then all of a sudden you start doubting yourself, and then, like I say, you'll end up not jumping for something that half a second quicker because you're hesitating. So, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that because Kagami had went and used that, second jump to get the dunk on them, it forced Serene into a state of confidence, and they were applying the pressure to Shotoku, and whatnot. And on the opposite side, Shotoku were kind of shutting down a bit. So yeah, it's very cool to just see that in play, and for Kuroko to actually just straight up point it out, because yeah, it is a thing that generally does happen. So yeah, what else? Izuki, I've got to point out him because he did, he got some really clinical shots in, crucial points, and became a clutch shooter for a couple of shots as well. I noticed that as well, like when they were coming back onto the court, that they actually looked at Azuki and said, make sure you get those points or whatever, and make sure like you hit those shots. So yeah, it's cool to see Azuki be able to pull that off, and also it makes sense, I think, with Azuki, because he is the cool, calm and collected one, that he would be more composed, and I feel like therefore he would be a decent, long shooter. So yeah, there is that. You also talk about his eyes like cramping up, which I don't know what that means. I guess it means just like Kuroko's effectiveness throughout the game, I guess Azuki has it as well. So we'll keep an eye on that as the episodes go on. If that ever comes up again, we don't know. Yeah, so we got introduced to the next generation of miracles, Aomine. So the blue one. And he said the only player that can beat me is me, or the only person that can beat me is me. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who they, how he plays. And I think the biggest revelation was just like, shit, they have to play them in the Championship League. So there's that. Now I do that is interesting. Right. So what I once thought about Shotoku when I got the sort of tournament thing wrong, because I realised, obviously, after someone told me that it was actually last year's tournament, that I was right, and it was all of the S's playing off against each other, right? The Three Kings and Serene. But this one was obviously, you had Seiho, Shotoku, and Serene all in the same block. So therefore, that's Shotoku out completely, that's Seiho out completely. So there's still Senshinkan that it could be possibly in the Championship League, along with whoever Aomine plays for. I mean, he might play for Senshinkan, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I've switched places on them now, because back when I thought Shotoku was in a different block, we would be playing them in the Championship League, and then you could afford a loss, because it's the top 3 of the Championship League that go through, right, with 4 teams. So that means you can't afford a loss. So I think whoever is Aomine's team, this is the match that we lose, but we will still go through to the inter-high, based upon the other 2 matches that they play. Right, the other 2 teams they play against, I think they'll beat them. Even if they don't, like let's say 2 matches Serene lose, as long as they win the 3rd one, and that team that they won against lost to the other 2 teams, then they would still go through. But I think to make sure that they go through, they need to win 2 games. But yeah, I think the one that Aomine is a part of, that'll be the game that we lose. Because it just makes sense, because the stakes aren't as high in that one. Because it's not specific tournament rules in the Championship League, that means that you can't afford a loss, but you can still go through. Which means that, yeah, with the stakes not being as high, it means that they're not completely out, and it allows them to go to the inter-high as well. So, yeah. It also puts another team, it puts a specific Generation of Miracles team out in the future for Serene to actually have a game that, against a team that they can have revenge against. I know that the second years of Serene had the obviously revenge game against Seiho, and into some capacity it was the same with Shotoku, but this is one like for the viewers as well. If they lose against Aomine's team in the Championship League, but go through the to the inter-high, if they face them off again in the inter, I mean, I don't know if that'll be the case unless Season 2 is also the inter-high. Because, I mean, we're just over halfway now, I think, in this season. So if we take into account, the Championship League games, going to the inter-high, don't know how they determine who plays who in the inter-high. If there's there's like just a selection that just goes out like randomly, you know, I don't know, but it'll be interesting. I mean, this from what I would guess is we lose to our Mania's team in the Championship League. We go through the Inter-High anyway, and then play off against Kisei's team, and then we get beat, and then that'll be the end of Season 1. That's what I think will happen. That's what I think. So yeah, but yeah. So Awamina, he's the next generation of Miracles that we've got to go up against, and that's the thing as well. Like, we faced off against 2 Generation of Miracles and beat them first time. Granted, Kisei's was a practice match, and they didn't really get going until like the last half of the match anyway. So it's a case of like you can put an asterisk next to that practice match, because Serene came out swinging, and Kisei's team wasn't. Kaijo wasn't basically prepared for it. So you can put an asterisk next to that one. But Shotoku, they came out and beat them first time. So, I mean, you can't big up the Generation of Miracles that much and then just go out and just, you know, beat them first time. You've got to have something to lose to make you stronger. And I think that's generally, in terms of sports anime anyway, is like, that's something that's just bound to happen. So it just makes sense in a meta way. But yeah, so I think, you know, the next 2 Generation of Miracle matches we will lose. Aomina's and Kisei's, I think. So yeah, that means that going into Season 2, whatever tournament it's called, you know, we'll be going up against maybe some other Generation of Miracles, and then we can get to an actual tournament game again with Kaijo or Awamania's team, and then get revenge on them, and then we continue on. But yeah, I mean, that's all I've got. So yeah, really cool, excellent. We go on to the Championship League now. So yeah, nothing else to really talk about. That's the end of that. So thank you everyone for watching. In the description below I have links to certain things. One of them is the Discord, so you can get yourself over there if you wish. And I also have a Patreon page as well, so if you do want to support me on Patreon, that'd be very much appreciated. There is a bunch of different tiers and rewards there, like early access, $5 a month, gives you access to shows a week early. There's also $10 there for the full length if you do want to watch any of my reactions in full and not just the 10-minute version. And then there's the exclusive tier, $15 a month, that gives you access to you know, movie reactions and everything like that. Okay, so go have a look at those, just have a look and see what they offer. But that's all I got. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.